Zeena Schreck is an artist, avant-garde musician, author, animal rights activist, yogini, and the spiritual leader of the Sethian liberation movement. Before converting to Tantric Buddhism, Zeena held the highest possible leadership positions in 3 of the most notorious occult orders of modern times: the Church of Satan, the Temple of Set, and the Werewolf Order. She was also spokesperson for the Church of Satan from 1985 to 1990 and appeared on radio and television quite often throughout that time. And we're here to talk a little bit about the live music show for Network Awesome that you curated. And you described your selections as reflecting influences on your art and music through riddles and clues. And I'm particularly interested in the Mae West piece that you selected, and I'd love to hear about it a little bit.
Oh, thank you. Yes, as I mentioned in the notes for the live music show, I actually met Mae West. It was a sort of a 16th birthday gift for me from a mutual friend. She was always an inspiration to me because Mae West was a real pioneer for a woman of her generation. She was a very spiritual woman in her own way. She had her own sort of methodology or whatever, but I was forewarned, don't say who you are. Don't tell her what family you come from because she's very religious. So I had to behave myself, and it was really amazing. How do you behave when you meet someone like Mae West? So I remember entering the room, and this was in Mission Hills in Los Angeles, and she was sitting there, like a queen. Well, really, more like it's just some kind of royalty. And so it was all men around her. And so I was brought up to her and introduced her, and she said, "Oh, nice to meet you." And she was very kind. And I remember, I don't know what possessed me, but I did like this little curtsy because I thought I was so impressed and so like awestruck by her presence that I didn't know what to do. So I did this little curtsy, and she like bowed. And I'm a magician, and since early childhood I've always been mystically inclined, and I always believed that there's like an energy that can pass between people if there's something very special. And I really felt like when I shook her hand that there was something that passed between us. It was really quite amazing. So that was something that was very special to me. And insofar as other influences in my early formative years artistically, I guess I would be remiss if I didn't mention one figure that was very dominant in my childhood, Kenneth Anger, which I think most people who know me know how prominent he is in my life, or was in my life. I haven't seen him actually in quite a long time, but when I was growing up, he was like a part of the family. So he was, you could say, my godfather, and even though that's sort of a contradiction in terms, but we used to call him Uncle Ken. And so when he would stop by the house, we'd always sort of jokingly refer to him as Uncle Ken. And when he would stay with us, because my parents were notoriously night owls, they would sleep until 5 in the afternoon or something. But Ken never slept. I mean, he was always, it's like he was the only person that would be awake with me in the morning. So he would take me out early in the morning, and we would go to Union Square. We'd, go around San Francisco early in the morning. And I remember in my early years when he would be working on the American edition of Hollywood Babylon, him bringing the things that he would be cutting and pasting together for that addition to our house and spreading it out all over the table. And having that influence around me. And he always used to say to me, repeatedly, oh, Zeena, I'm going to put you in a movie and you're going to be my fairy princess. I'm going to have you play my fairy princess. And year after year, he'd say, I'm still getting around to it. You're going to be the fairy princess. And finally, when I was living in Los Angeles, I used to always go to Forrest J. Ackerman's birthday parties, his birthday was always around the same time as my birthday also. And we would celebrate our birthdays together. And Kenneth came to one of Forrest's birthday parties, and this was years and years and years later. And I said, do you remember, Ken, how you always used to say that you were going to put me in a film once and that I was going to be your fairy princess? And he said, well, Zeena, you're still my fairy princess. And I said, Ken, I think my fairy princess days are over. But so anyway, I brought a little a little artifact, but it's from Ken, from der Onkel Ken, and it says, der Pest Fisches von der Onkel Ken, and then here it says, Kommen mit der Friesen here. So it's obviously freezing in Berlin when he sent this to me in the same year that I met Mae West. So there's a little anecdotal story.
Today is Halloween, and that is the holy day for modern-day witches and Satanists. Zeena LaVey is a Satanist who was baptized into the Church of Satan by her father, Anton LaVey. He founded the Church of Satan back in 1966. Zeena says there is no truth to the news reports of satanic sacrifices, and she says Satanists are just getting a bad rap.
In the 80s, you were the chief spokesperson for the Church of Satan, and you were on television a great deal. And for those of us in that time period, I remember this was a very huge topic, and you were on television and radio quite often. And I'm just wondering about how you feel about how television influences society, and maybe times have changed somewhat, maybe not, but...
Yeah, you mean in terms of how the media can manipulate situations or even fuel hysterias and things like that. Yeah. Well, it was definitely a learning. It was definitely education for me, and something that I was thrust into unexpectedly, and I was totally unprepared for. So, as far as a crash course in how the media works and what it can do to society, it was very eye-opening. And seeing the behind the scenes of all of that was not only the unwanted education, but it was really, in many ways, very hurtful, not only for myself, but to see how it can hurt innocent people from behind the scenes and also in the general public as well, because it has far-reaching effects, far-reaching rippling effects. So that was really quite astounding. Forget that it had anything to do with Satanism per se, just the overall general phenomena of how the media can whip the public into a frenzy.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to talk about specifics, because I know you probably had good experiences and bad experiences, and maybe more on the bad end of the scale in that time. And I remember there being, of course, I remember the hysteria, but I also remember it, as you're saying, heavily fueled by the media, because of course, you know, where we live, this came to us through the television, this hysteria. We would have never really dreamed this up on our own.
Yeah, exactly.
And I used to also wonder if the people creating these television shows even had a conscience, basically, about what they were.
I think they lose sight of what they're doing. I think they get so swept up. Well, you have to remember too, and this is something that Europeans often forget when they look to America for their entertainment sources. But you have to remember that in America, being a capitalist society, that American television and media is so driven by the dollar that I was really caught up in all of this because being a young, attractive woman representing Satanism, which was a very hot topic then, I was being grabbed up every time Sweeps Weeks, which is the Nielsen ratings, came around. And I wasn't really aware of how that was happening until about 3 years into my tenure as High Priestess of the Church of Satan. So when you talk about, and this is true for everything in American society, the military, the media, basically everything that runs and operates in America is governed by capitalism, is governed by how economics fuels that behind the scenes. And we have to remember that. So whatever was going on in the media in the so-called witch hunt or satanic panic of that era was really being fueled by by advertising and creating jobs, creating task forces. So this really opened my eyes to how the country worked on a whole new level that became really very frightening to me by the time I was ready to leave the country.
So you feel like you were in a way pushed out of America by the media somehow, or did you feel like they were using you up in some way?
Oh, totally, absolutely, totally. Yeah, I was eye candy. They didn't care what I had to say. It didn't even matter what words were coming out of my mouth, because for the most part, they would cut and splice it anyway and just slap me, you know, side by side with a picture of a dead cat. Mm-hmm. It didn't matter if I was saying that we didn't believe in animal sacrifice, because all they wanted was, you know, this gorgeous dame with a pentagram and, you know, Richard Ramirez and Charles Manson all together, one big happy family. So we were all characters on a sitcom as far as they were concerned.
And with us to debate Mr. Johnson is Anton LaVey's daughter, Satanist Zeena LaVey. And she says that these Satan crimes have nothing to do with the Church of Satan.
To tell you the truth, I really don't feel that the century it begins has any relevance in why we're here today.
Okay.
And I think it's an important, I think the most important issue to bring up is that the Church of Satan and Satanists are beginning their own investigation on people like Jerry Johnston who say that they're investigating Satan's underground. There is, in fact, no such thing as Satan's underground, what he did.
Oh,
and
come on.
No, that's true.
Obviously
It's true.
What do you
know
teach?
it.
So Zeena, if we can end by talking about your current projects.
Oh, sure, thanks. Actually, well, just recently, this CD, The Vinyl Solution, is just recently out. It's a compilation of all of Radio Werewolf's vinyl releases and a couple of extra tracks on that. And then the Manson File, Nicholas's book, The Manson File, is also out. It's been out for a year now, and it has all of the illustrations in the Manson File. I did the cover as well, and it's from a suite of collages that I made entitled God Bless Charles Manson. And this is going to be the cover of the new Beatum, which obviously has my face on it. And it has a contribution inside from a monologue that I did for theater in the 80s. And what else is new? Oh, also our book Demons of the Flesh. From 10 years ago, we're going to be reprinting spring of 2013, and I'll be writing a new introduction to that. So that's also coming up, new, soon to be released.
Zeena, thank you very much for the interview today.
Oh, well, thank you very much. I'd like to end this with a brief little dedication that whatever understanding came from this, whatever positive merit or positive forces, may it go deeper and deeper and hasten all of our way to liberation and enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. Om Awadeva Hui, Un Salam.